the floorboards cut into my hip, a cold reminder of my place in my son's house. Every single month, $6,000 of my hard-earned pension funds, my daughter-in-law's designer handbags while I sleep on a thin mat like an unwanted stray. She calls it safety, but I know it is theft. I lay here listening to her heels click upstairs, realizing that today is the day I stop being their victim. My name is Eleanor Hartman, and at 62 years old, the first thing I felt this morning was the sharp bite of varnished oak digging into my hip. I rolled over, a groan escaping my lips before I could suppress it, my spine locking up in protest. I was lying on a thin yoga mat in the corner of the living room, the kind of mat meant for 20 minutes of stretching, not 8 hours of sleep for an aging woman. I stared at the dust motes dancing in the shaft of light cutting across the floor. This was my view now. The floor of a house I wrote the down payment check for 5 years ago. I sat up slowly, rubbing the cold from my arms. It is a bitter thing to realize that while I shiver on the floor, the Riverstone Employee Pension Fund deposits exactly $6,000 into an account bearing my name on the 3rd of every single month. I worked in a warehouse for 35 years for that security. I lifted heavy boxes until my shoulders burned and stood on concrete until my veins swelled. Also, I would never have to be a burden. Yet, I have not touched a single penny of my own money in 6 months. My son told me it was for the best. He said, "Mum, let us manage it for safety. The digital world is full of scammers." I was pulling the thin blanket off my legs when I heard the heavy footsteps on the stairs. Brittany appeared. My daughter-in-law was wearing a new matching set of lavender workout clothes that looked expensive. I knew they were expensive because I had seen the price tag in the trash yesterday. It cost more than my food budget for 2 weeks. She stopped at the bottom of the stairs, her eyes narrowing as she looked at me. "Shh, Eleanor. Honestly," she hissed, though I had barely moved. "You're clumping around like a herd of buffalo. Do you want to wake the kids?" "They need their rest." I bit my tongue. I had been quieter than a ghost. I was just getting up. "Brittany, well, do it silently," she snapped, walking past me into the kitchen. I followed her. The kitchen island was covered in evidence of the life my pension was funding. There were 3 unopened packages from a luxury department store and a stack of credit card bills with Brittany's name on them. Meanwhile, on the fridge, there was a list she had written for me. It was a list of foods I was not allowed to eat because they were too expensive or not necessary. I was forced to wait for the clearance stickers on day-old bread at the supermarket. I remembered the incident from yesterday afternoon. The mail carrier had tried to hand me a thick envelope from Riverstone Pension Services. I had reached for it, thinking it might be an update on my benefits. Brittany had materialized from the hallway, snatching the envelope right out of my hand with a speed that startled me. "I'll take that," she had said, offering a tight, fake smile to the mailman before slamming the door. When she turned to me, her eyes were cold. "It's just boring paperwork. Mum, beneficiary updates and tax nonsense. Con will handle it. You don't need to stress your mind with legal jargon." For the first time, a question had sparked in my mind. Why was I not allowed to see my own tax nonsense just then? Mark walked into the kitchen. My only son. He was adjusting his tie, looking tired and distracted. He works as an associate at Northbridge Horizons Legal Group, a job that keeps him busy for 12 hours a day. "Mark," I said, trying to catch his eye. "I need to talk to you about my account. I need new shoes. These are hurting my arches." He didn't even look at my feet. He grabbed a travel mug of coffee. Brittany handles the finances. Mom, you know that. She's better with the numbers than I am. I have to go. I have a deposition in an hour. Brittany handles it, he repeated. And then the door clicked shut behind him, leaving me alone with the hum of the refrigerator and the woman who treated me like an unwelcome pest. That evening, the humiliation culminated at the dinner table. The air was thick with the savory, rich scent of rosemary and seared beef. Mark and Brittany sat at the head and side of the mahogany table, their plates occupied by thick, juicy ribeye steaks and roasted asparagus glistening with butter. My place setting was different. In front of me sat a small, chipped bowl filled with a pale, watery liquid. It was canned chicken noodle soup, diluted with extra water to make it stretch further. My stomach gave a traitorous rumble as I watched Mark slice into his meat, the pink juices running onto the porcelain. I looked up, gripping my spoon. "Brittany," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Could I perhaps have a small slice of the beef, just a few ounces? This soup it isn't very filling." Brittany didn't even look up from her phone as she chewed. She swallowed slowly before turning her gaze to me, her expression one of exaggerated concern that didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, Mom. No," she said, her voice dripping with a sickly sweetness. "You know you shouldn't eat red meat. It's terrible for your blood pressure and your digestion. The doctor was very clear about keeping you on a restricted, soft diet." I frowned, looking down at the grey broth. "What Dr. Brittany? I haven't been to a doctor in over a year. No one has taken me." Mark paused with his fork halfway to his mouth. For a second, I thought he might defend me. I thought he might remember the woman who worked double shifts to buy him his first suit for law school. Instead, he sighed, looking weary. "Mom, please don't argue with her," Mark said, avoiding my eyes. "Brittany reads all the medical journals. She knows what's best for your health. Just eat the soup." I looked at my son, a successful lawyer who could argue a case in front of a judge but couldn't look his own mother in the face at dinner. I lowered my head and ate the watery soup, the salt tasting like tears. The night ended as the day had begun. After I washed the steak knives and scrubbed the heavy pans because Brittany said the dishwasher wasted water, I retreated to the living room. The house fell silent as they went upstairs. I could hear their footsteps on the plush carpet of the second floor, a floor I was rarely invited to visit anymore. I unrolled my thin mat on the hard wood, positioning it away from the drafty window. I lay down, pulling the scratchy throw blanket up to my chin. The floorboards were unforgiving, pressing against my ribs and my hips. Above me, I heard the creak of their king-sized mattress, followed by the muffled sound of the television in their master suite. I stared into the darkness, the physical pain in my back dull compared to the sharp ache in my chest. I closed my eyes, but sleep would not come. The question that had been nagging at me all day finally solidified in the silence, loud and demanding. I have a pension that pays out $6,000 every 30 days. I worked for 3.5 decades to ensure my twilight years would be dignified. So, how is it possible that a woman with that kind of money is shivering on the floor of a house she paid for? Lying on the hard floor allows plenty of time for memory to do its work. My mind drifted back to the deep freeze of the warehouse at Riverstone Medical Supply. I could almost smell the cardboard dust and the industrial cleanser. For 35 years, I worked the graveyard shift. I spent my nights lifting heavy crates of saline solution and surgical kits until my fingers were raw and cracked. I used to look at my hands under the harsh fluorescent lights, the skin dry and peeling around the knuckles, and I would tell myself that every crack was a deposit into my future. I did not mind the cold or the ache in my lower back because I knew that one day the Riverstone Employee Pension Fund would take care of me. I built that dream with Jacob. He was a good man, a truck driver with calloused palms and a laugh that could shake the walls of the small two-bedroom house we bought in Maplewood, Ohio. We scraped together every dime we had for the down payment. We did not go to the movies. We did not eat at restaurants. We saved. Then came the children, Mark and Lily. I remember nights when the heating bill was too high, and we would bundle the kids in 3 layers of blankets. Jacob and I would eat instant noodles for dinner, claiming we were not hungry, just so we could afford the thick textbooks Mark needed for his advanced classes or the pink satin ballet shoes Lily begged for. We were a team. We were building something. But life has a way of shattering plans. Mark was 18, and Lily was only 15 when the police knocked on our door at 3 a.m. A drunk driver on the interstate had ended Jacob's life in a split second. I remember standing by his grave, the rain soaking through my black dress, terrified of the future. I fell to my knees in the mud and whispered to the cold earth, "I won't let them fall. Jacob." I sobbed, my voice breaking. "I promise you, I will work until my legs break if I have to. They will never know what it means to be poor." And I kept that promise. I picked up double shifts. I missed school plays and birthday dinners because I was at the warehouse, scanning barcodes and loading trucks. Every month, I opened my pay stub and circled the contribution to my pension. That number was my lifeline. It was the promise of a time when I could sit on a porch swing, drink hot tea, and finally rest my swollen feet. Mark was my golden boy. He went to law school on scholarships and the checks I sent him every month. He was the safe bet. Lily was different. She was wilder, full of color and impossible dreams. When she announced she was moving to New York to become a designer, I was terrified. I saw only risk and poverty for her. The fight we had in the kitchen still haunts me. "You are throwing away your security for a pipe dream." "Lily," I had yelled, slamming my hand on the counter. "Do you think money grows on trees? Do you want to struggle like I did?" Lily had looked at me with tears in her eyes, shaking her head. "Mom, you survived, but you never lived. I don't want your life. I can't. I can't breathe in this house anymore." She left the next morning. That was the crack in our family foundation, a fissure that never healed. I thought I was protecting her, but I only pushed her away. It was that distance that Brittany would later use as a weapon against me. 3 years ago, I finally clocked out for the last time. My retirement party was small but sweet. My supervisor handed me a plaque made of fake wood, and my co-workers bought me a bouquet of cheap carnations. I cried that day, real, happy tears. I thought I had made it. I thought the hard part was over. To Eleanor, my boss had toasted, raising a paper cup of sparkling cider. "Enjoy your freedom. You earned every cent." I remember smiling, clutching that plastic plaque to my chest, believing him. I truly believed that the days of counting pennies and aching bones were behind me. I had no idea that the real struggle was waiting for me, not in a cold warehouse, but inside the luxury home of the son I had sacrificed everything to raise. When I moved into Mark's house 6 months ago, the arrangement was supposed to be temporary, but dignified. They promised me the guest suite on the second floor, a lovely room with a view of the oak tree in the backyard. But that promise evaporated after 3 weeks. Brittany decided she needed a home office for her consulting business, which mostly seemed to involve ordering packages and browsing social media. Then, she claimed the kids needed a playroom. Before I knew it, my bed was sold, my dresser was in storage, and I was assigned a corner of the living room. "It's just for a little while, Mum," Mark had said, refusing to meet my gaze. "Until we sort out the space." But the space never got sorted. The walls started closing in on me, not physically, but financially. The humiliation hit me properly on a Tuesday afternoon at the supermarket. I was standing in line with a basket containing shampoo, toothpaste, and a bag of apples. It was a small purchase, maybe $25. I swiped my debit card, the one linked to my Riverstone pension account, and waited for the beep. Instead, a harsh buzz sounded. "Declined," the cashier said loudly, popping her gum. I felt the heat rise up my neck. That can't be right. There is money in there. Please try again." She sighed, rolling her eyes, and swiped it again. The same harsh buzz. "It says card blocked. Ma'am? Do you have another form of payment? People are waiting." I stood frozen, my hands shaking as I looked at the line of impatient shoppers behind me. I had to leave the basket there, walking out of the store with my head down, tears stinging my eyes. I felt like a criminal. When I got home, I found Brittany in the kitchen, arranging flowers. I slammed the dead card onto the granite counter. "Why is my card blocked? Brittany, I couldn't even buy toothpaste." She didn't flinch. She turned to me with a pitying smile, the kind one gives a confused toddler. "Oh, Eleanor. Didn't Mark tell you? We noticed some suspicious activity in the area. Lots of scammers targeting seniors lately. You know how forgetful you've been getting." "I am not forgetful," I snapped. "See, you're getting agitated," she soothed, her voice dripping with false concern. "I transferred your pension into our main family account. It's safer this way. I'll withdraw cash for you whenever you need it. You don't have to worry your head about the banking." I looked at Mark, who was leaning against the fridge, drinking a beer. "Mark, is this true? You took my money without asking me." Mark looked at Brittany, then at the floor. It's for your own protection. Mom, Brittany is really good with finances." 2 days later, a woman from the Maplewood Social Services knocked on the door. She held a clipboard and looked at me with grave concern. "Mrs. Hartman," she said, "we received an anonymous report that you are self-neglecting, that you are refusing to sleep in a bed and are not eating properly." I was stunned. "What? No, I sleep on the floor because she refuses the guest room." Brittany interrupted, stepping in smoothly. She put a hand on my shoulder, squeezing just a little too hard. "We have tried, haven't we? Mark? We bought her a lovely bed, but she insists on sleeping near the television. She says the bed hurts her back, and she barely eats. We try to feed her steak and vegetables, but she only wants soup. It's very difficult for us." The social worker scribbled on her pad, nodding sympathetically at Brittany. I tried to speak, to scream that they were lying, but the look in Brittany's eyes dared me to make a scene. I realized then that if I screamed, I would only prove their point that I was unstable. Later that afternoon, while I was dusting the hallway, I heard Brittany's voice coming from the laundry room. She was on the phone. her voice low. Yes, yes. The social worker saw her on the floor. It's perfect. If I can prove she isn't capable of managing her own affairs, we can file for full power of attorney. It is just a matter of time. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just about greed. It was a calculated erasure of my existence. My suspicions were confirmed when I went to empty the trash can in the office. Buried under coffee grounds was a torn envelope from the bank. I pulled it out and wiped it off. It was a confirmation of a change of address for my bank statements. At the bottom, there was a signature Eleanor Hartman, but the loop of the E was wrong, and the slant was too sharp. It was a forgery, shaky and deliberate, meant to look like the hand of an old woman. Panic seized me. I waited until Brittany went to pick up the kids, and Mark was in the shower. I grabbed the landline and dialed Lily's number in New York. I needed my daughter. Ring, ring, ring. You have reached the voicemail of Lily Hartman. Please leave a... I hung up, defeated. As I turned around, Brittany was standing in the doorway, holding her car keys. She hadn't left yet. Lily is very busy, Mom, she said, her voice devoid of warmth. She has a new life. She doesn't want to be dragged back into your drama. Don't bother her. That night, back on my mat in the darkness, I didn't cry. Instead, I reached under the cushion and pulled out a small, spiral-bound notebook I had found in the junk drawer. I took a pen and wrote the date. November 3rd. Pension deposit $6,000. Withdrawn by Brittany. Received 0. November 5th. Social worker visit. Brittany lied about the bed. I wrote it all down. They thought I was a helpless old woman losing her mind. They did not know that I was building a case. The afternoon sun was slicing through the blinds when Brittany rushed out the door, claiming a hair emergency at the salon. In her haste, she left her laptop open on the kitchen island. I was wiping down the counter, trying to ignore the gnawing hunger in my stomach, when the machine chimed. A notification bubbled up in the corner of the screen. Riverstone Pension Services. Pension authorization. Confirmation. My heart hammered a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I knew I shouldn't look. I knew it was an invasion of privacy. But the name of the company I had given 35 years of my life to pulled me in like a magnet. My hands shook as I reached out and tapped the trackpad. The email opened, displaying a PDF attachment. I leaned in, squinting to read the fine print without my reading glasses. It was a power of attorney document. We confirm the transfer of monthly benefits, I whispered, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. The document authorized the immediate redirection of my entire pension, $6,000 a month, into an account solely in the name of Brittany Lawson Hartman. The justification line made my knees weak. Management of expenses for Eleanor Hartman due to severe cognitive decline. Cognitive decline. I remembered the price of milk in 1982. I remembered the birth weight of both my children. I was not declining. Below the legal form was a scanned document titled Psychological Evaluation Report. It was signed by a Dr. Aris Thorne. I stared at the name. I had never met a Dr. Thorne. I had never stepped foot in his office. Yet here he was, detailing my inability to make sound financial decisions and my confusion regarding basic household tasks. I scrolled down, anger rising in my throat like bile. That was when I saw the email chain beneath the official correspondence. It was a reply to a contact saved simply as Gabe. Did the transfer go through? Gabe had written, Brittany's reply was time-stamped just 20 minutes ago. Yes, it is done. Just a few more months. Babe? Once I have full control of the main savings account too, we can cash out. Then we leave this house and that loser, Mark, behind. Costa Rica is calling. I gripped the edge of the granite counter to keep from collapsing. The betrayal was so absolute it stole the air from my lungs. She was not just stealing my money. She was stealing my son's life. She was planning to run away with another man, using my hard-earned sweat equity to fund her escape. And Mark, my blind, foolish son, was the one who had signed the papers. I saw his signature right next to hers on the attachment. He had signed his own mother into poverty to please a woman who called him a loser. I heard a car engine revving down the street. Panic seized me. I needed this. I needed proof. I hit print on the small wireless printer tucked in the corner of the kitchen office. The machine whirred to life, agonizingly slow. I watched the driveway, praying she wouldn't walk in. When the paper finally slid out, I snatched it, folded it into a tiny square, and shoved it deep into the pocket of my house dress. I ran to the living room and tucked it inside the plastic sleeve of an old photo album on the bookshelf, right behind a picture of Jacob and me on our wedding day. That evening, the tension in the house was a physical weight. Mark was eating a takeout burger at the table, grease shining on his chin. He looked exhausted. "Mark," I said, my voice trembling despite my best efforts to steady it. "I went to the store today. My card, it was blocked again. I have no money to buy anything." I expected concern. I expected him to ask why. Instead, Mark slammed his burger onto the wrapper, startling me. "Mum, stop it, just stop it," he shouted, his face turning red. "Do not make everything so dramatic. Brittany handles the money because you can't. She sacrificed her career to run this house, to take care of you, and all you do is complain. You should be thanking her instead of suspecting her." "But Mark," I don't want to hear it." He roared, standing up and storming out of the room. Brittany walked in from the hallway, a smug, cold look on her face. She had heard everything. She didn't say a word to Mark. Instead, she turned to me. "Eleanor, I think that yoga mat is becoming a tripping hazard," she said, her voice smooth and devoid of emotion. "It's too bulky. I nearly fell over it this morning. From now on, you can sleep on this." She tossed a thin, folded cotton sheet onto the hardwood floor. "It folds up smaller," she said, "much tidier." That night, I lay on the sheet. There was no cushion between my old bones and the unforgiving wood. The pain in my hips was a throbbing fire that kept me awake. I stared at the shadows on the ceiling, tears sliding hot down my temples into my ears. "Jacob," I whispered into the dark, clutching the photo album to my chest. I did everything to give that boy a future. I worked until my hands bled. Why? Why is he letting her do this? Why is he letting her turn me into a dog in the house we bought? The silence of the house gave no answer. But for the first time, the pain didn't just hurt. It burned. And in that burning, I felt the spark of something I hadn't felt in a long time. Rage. It was a Saturday morning, and the house was quiet in that heavy, suffocating way it always was before Brittany woke up. I was sitting on my thin sheet, rubbing the stiffness out of my knees, when the burner phone I kept hidden in my knitting bag buzzed. It was a sound so foreign to me that I nearly dropped it. I squinted at the screen. It was a message from a number I did not recognize. but the first two words made my breath hitch. "Mum, it's Lily. I got a weird email from your old account about a cognitive decline alert. Mum, are you okay?" My hands trembled as I stared at the glowing screen. I had not accessed my email in months because Brittany had changed the passwords. Then it hit me, in her arrogance, or perhaps just her haste to link all my accounts to hers. Brittany must have triggered an automatic security notification to my emergency contact. She had forgotten that years ago. I had listed Lily as my backup. I waited until I heard the shower running upstairs. Then, with a heart beating like a trapped bird, I dialed the number. "Hello." Her voice was deeper than I remembered, sharper. But it was undeniably my daughter. "Lily," I whispered, tears instantly blurring my vision. "Lily, it's me. Mum. Oh my God." She breathed out, and I could hear the traffic of Brooklyn in the background. "Mum? What is going on? This email says you have been declared incompetent. It says Mark has full control. Why didn't you tell me? I couldn't," I stammered, clutching the phone with both hands. "Brittany took everything? Lily, my phone, my cards, my computer. She says I am sick. She says I forget things." I took a jagged breath. "Lily, I am sleeping on the floor, on a sheet. They took my room." There was a silence on the other end, heavy and terrifying. Then, Lily's voice came back, low and dangerous. "You are sleeping on the floor in the house you paid for." "Yes," I admitted, the shame burning my cheeks. "I thought you didn't care," Brittany said. "She said you were too busy with your new life. She said you never called." "That witch," Lily hissed. The venom in her voice was startling. "Mum, I have sent birthday cards every year. I sent a cashmere scarf for Christmas. I emailed you once a month. Mark and Brittany told me you were angry. They said you threw my letters away and told them to tell me to never come back." The revelation hit me harder than the cold floor ever had. All those years I thought my daughter had abandoned me. She had been trying to reach me. They had stolen my money, yes, but stealing my daughter's love was a cruelty I could not comprehend. I never got them. I sobbed quietly. I never got anything. "I am booking a flight right now," Lily said, her voice turning steely. "I will be there in 2 days. Mom, listen to me. Act normal. Do not let them know we spoke. I need to see it. I need to see exactly what they are doing to you with my own eyes." 2 days later. The doorbell rang. Brittany was in the kitchen making a green smoothie, and Mark was watching football. When Brittany opened the door, her fake, high-pitched greeting faltered for a fraction of a second. "Lily, oh my goodness!" Brittany exclaimed, recovering quickly, but with a tightness in her jaw. "What a surprise. We didn't know you were coming?" Lily stood in the doorway, a sleek suitcase in hand, wearing a sharp black coat that smelled of the city. She looked at Brittany with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Surprise," Lily said flatly. Then she saw me standing by the hallway entrance. She dropped her bag and walked past Brittany as if she were furniture. She pulled me into a hug so fierce it nearly knocked the wind out of me. I buried my face in her shoulder, smelling her perfume, feeling the solid reality of her. "Hi, Mum," she whispered into my hair, her voice shaking. "Well," Brittany said loudly from the door, her eyes darting between us. "It's been so long, hasn't it? I'm sure Mum is happy, even if well, she gets confused about who people are sometimes." Lily pulled back and looked at me, then at Brittany. Her expression was calm, but her eyes were burning. She looks pretty sharp to me, Brittany. That night, the house was dark. Mark and Brittany had gone to sleep upstairs, secure in their comfortable beds. I lay down on my sheet in the living room, staring at the ceiling, my heart full. Then I heard soft footsteps. Lily walked into the room. She was wearing her silk pajamas. Without a word, she lay down on the hard wooden floor right next to me. "Lily." "No," I whispered, horrified. "It's cold." "Go to the couch at least." "If my mother sleeps on the floor?" "I sleep on the floor," she said stubbornly, reaching out to hold my hand in the dark. She traced the rough skin of my knuckles, the same hands that had worked to buy her ballet shoes 30 years ago. "I saw the pantry." "Mom?" she whispered, her voice trembling with rage. "I saw the locked cabinets. I saw the list of what you can't eat. And I saw the way Mark looked at his shoes when I asked why you don't have a bed." She squeezed my hand tight. "This isn't just a bad family dynamic." "Mom?" she said, her voice dropping to a terrifyingly serious whisper. "This is financial abuse. This is fraud. This is a crime. And I swear to you, I am not going to let them win. We are going to burn their little kingdom to the ground." The next morning, while Mark and Brittany were out networking at a brunch I was not invited to, Lily drove me to the centre of Maplewood. We stopped in front of a modest brick building with a sign that read, "Redwood and Pike Elder Law Associates." Inside, the air smelled of coffee and old paper. We met Andre Pike, a man with kind eyes and a steady, reassuring presence. He did not look like the flashy corporate sharks Mark worked with. He looked like a man who listened. I laid everything out on his mahogany desk, the spiral-bound notebook where I had tracked every missing penny of my $6,000 a month, the torn envelope I had fished out of the trash with the forged signature, and, most importantly, the printout of the email from Brittany to Gabe that I had hidden in my wedding album. Andre put on his reading glasses and went through the pile in silence. When he finally looked up, his expression was grave but focused. "Mrs. Hartman," he said, tapping my notebook. "What you and your daughter have brought me is gold. In most cases of financial elder abuse, we are chasing ghosts. But this is a roadmap." He leaned back, clasping his hands. "If we can prove she forged your signature on that change of address form and the power of attorney documents, she is looking at serious criminal charges, fraud, identity theft, elder abuse." He paused, looking at me gently. "And Mark, if he knew about the forgery and signed off on it, the law will not look kindly on him either." My heart ached at the mention of my son, but Lily reached over and squeezed my hand. "We do what we have to do," she said firmly. Andre nodded. "Exactly. But to nail this shut, we need to be undeniable. We need a paper trail that links the fraud directly to her, and we need to catch her in her own lies." The plan was set. We became investigators in my own life. Lily went to an electronics store and bought a digital voice recorder no larger than a pack of gum. She slipped it into the pocket of my house cardigan. "Just keep it on." "Mum," she whispered. "Ask her simple questions. Let her hang herself." That evening, I found Brittany in the kitchen. I touched the recorder in my pocket and cleared my throat. "Brittany," I said, trying to sound frail. Are you sure my money is safe? I worry about the bills." She didn't even turn around. "Oh my God. Eleanor, how many times I'm handling it? You would just lose it or get scammed. Stop asking me." But The $6,000. I pressed, my voice trembling for real. It is all going to the house expenses, every cent. She lied smoothly. Life is expensive. Mum, you have no idea. We had her. 2 days later, Andre called us back to his office. He had been busy. He had subpoenaed the access logs from Riverstone Pension Services. Look at this, Andre said, pointing to a highlighted line on a spreadsheet. Every single request to change your banking details, email address, and beneficiary information came from one IP address. It matches the residential Wi-Fi at Mark's house. But the real blow came next. Andre opened a digital audio file on his computer. Riverstone records all incoming calls for quality assurance, he explained. Listen to this call from 3 months ago. Static crackled, and then a voice filled the room. It was unmistakably Brittany. But she was pitching her voice lower, trying to sound older. Yes. This is Eleanor Hartman. The voice on the recording said, I am verifying my social security number to authorize the transfer. I covered my mouth with my hand. Hearing her steal my identity, using my name to rob me while I sat in the next room, made my stomach turn. That is her, I whispered. That is Brittany. That is a felony. Andre corrected. His voice hard. Lily had also been working. She had gone to the Maplewood Social Services office and demanded to see my file. When she showed the young social worker, a woman named Ms. Davis, the photos of my sleeping mat and the pantry lock, the woman went pale. I didn't write this report saying she chose the floor. Ms. Davis had told Lily, her voice shaking. My notes said she was being coerced. Someone changed my submission in the system before it was finalized. I thought it was a glitch. But now, Ms. Davis agreed to testify. She was angry that her professional reputation had been used to justify my abuse. As we left Andre's office, I held the thick legal file against my chest. It was heavy, filled with bank statements, IP logs, and transcripts. For the first time in 6 months, I did not feel like a victim. I felt dangerous. I looked at the brick building, and then at Lily. Mark is a lawyer, I said, a cold resolve settling in my gut. He thinks the law is a weapon only he can use. But now I have a lawyer too. The atmosphere in the house shifted from cold neglect to a frantic, vibrating tension. Brittany was no longer just ignoring me. She was watching Lily with the eyes of a cornered animal. My daughter had become a shadow, appearing silently in the kitchen whenever Brittany reached for the mail, or sitting in the living room with a book. Her ears clearly tuned to every phone call Brittany took. Brittany began to whisper poison into Mark's ear. I heard them late one night in the kitchen while I lay on my mat, feigning sleep. You don't see it? Do you? Brittany hissed, her voice low and urgent. Lily didn't come back here because she missed her mommy. She came back because she smelled the money. She is going to talk your mother into signing that pension over to her, and then they will both leave you with nothing. I waited for Mark to defend his sister. I waited for him to say that Lily was an artist, not a thief. Instead, I heard the heavy sigh of a man drowning in his own weakness. Mark was terrified. His job at Northbridge Horizons was unstable, and I knew from the papers I had seen that he was deep in debt. He needed a savior, and unfortunately, he had chosen the wrong one. You really think she would do that? Mark asked, his voice cracking. I know she would, Brittany replied. We need to protect the assets, Mark. We need that guardianship order now, before she poisons Eleanor's mind completely. The next day, Brittany announced that she had made an appointment for me to see a specialist. Just a routine checkup for your memory. Mum, she said with a tight smile. They took me to a small, dingy clinic in Strip Mall, far from the reputable hospital where I used to work. Dr. Thorne was a man with sweaty hands and a smile that did not reach his eyes. He asked me questions that were designed to confuse anyone. Mrs. Hartman, can you tell me the exact balance of your checking account right now? He asked, tapping his pen. I remembered Lily's advice. Play the part. Mum, give them enough rope to hang themselves. I blinked slowly, letting my mouth hang open slightly. I am not sure. Is it $100, Doctor? Thorne smirked and scribbled furiously on his pad. He looked at Brittany and winked. Then he turned back to me. Well, at your age, you really don't need to worry about money anymore. It is too complex. Your son can handle the burden. Right, I suppose. If he wants to. I murmured. See, Doctor, Thorne said to Brittany. She is relieved to let go. This will be an easy filing. Back at the house, the betrayal deepened. Lily pulled me into the laundry room while Mark was in the shower. She looked pale. Mum, I saw Brittany's browser history on the iPad. She whispered. She is looking at real estate listings. Not to buy. To sell. She contacted a realtor about listing this house as a fixer-upper for quick cash. My knees nearly gave out. My home. The home Jacob and I had bought with decades of sacrifice. She was going to sell it out from under me. But the final blow came that night. Lily and I were sitting in the dark of the living room when we heard Brittany pacing on the patio. The sliding glass door was cracked open just an inch. Lily held up her finger to her lips and pressed the record button on her phone. Brittany's voice drifted in, manic and hushed. Yes. Gabe. I know, she was saying. The old hag is practically signing the papers herself. The doctor is on board. Once the judge grants the emergency guardianship, I can liquidate the retirement savings immediately. There was a pause as she listened to the man on the other end. Then she laughed, a sound that chilled my blood. If everything goes smoothly, I can pull out at least $200,000 in the first 6 months. Then we book the flights to Costa Rica. We leave Mark here with the debt and his senile mother. He can put her in a state home for all I care. I grabbed Lily's arm, my nails digging into her skin. My son. She was going to destroy my son and leave him to rot, just as she planned to do to me. Lily stopped the recording. Her face was set in stone. We have enough, she said. The next morning, we sat in Andre Pike's office. He listened to the recording of Brittany planning her escape to Costa Rica. His jaw tightened. This changes things, Andre said, leaning forward. This is no longer just about stopping a guardianship. This is conspiracy to commit fraud and grand larceny. He looked at me, then at Lily. We are not just going to block her, Andre said, his voice dropping to a serious, strategic tone. We are going to let her think she has won. We will set up the signing for the guardianship papers. We will let her bring the notary, and then we are going to drop the hammer. I will call the state prosecutor. I nodded, feeling a strange calm settle over me. Do it, I said. Let her think she has won. Andre Pike worked fast. 2 days later, we sat in a sterile conference room with a woman named Sarah Vance, an assistant state prosecutor for Ohio who specialized in elder protection. She was sharp, intimidating, and exactly what we needed. She reviewed the transcripts, the forged letters, and the audio recording of Brittany planning to abandon my son. This is not just a civil dispute. Mrs. Hartman, Ms. Vance said, closing the file with a snap. This is predatory. If she signs those guardianship papers knowing the medical report is false, and if she uses that power to liquidate your assets for personal flight, she is committing a first-degree felony. So, we arrest her. Now? Lily asked, leaning forward. No, Ms. Vance shook her head. We let her walk into the trap. We need her to attempt the final act of theft. Let the signing meeting proceed tomorrow. I will have investigators on standby, along with an independent notary who knows what to look for. We will let her think she has won, right up until the moment she puts ink to paper. The plan was terrifyingly simple, yet it required us to become actors in our own home. Lily took on the hardest role. She had to play the defeated, jealous sister. That afternoon, Lily stood in the kitchen while Brittany was chopping vegetables. I guess you win. Brittany, Lily said, her voice heavy with fake resignation. I can't afford a lawyer to fight this guardianship. If Mom is really that sick, then maybe Mark should handle the money. Just promise me you won't put her in a home. Brittany stopped chopping. A slow, triumphant smile spread across her face. It is for the best. Lily, Brittany cooed, though her eyes remained cold. Mark and I are just better equipped to handle these burdens. You go back to your art. We will take care of the heavy lifting. Meanwhile, I practiced my own deception. I moved slower. I left a cup of tea on the bookshelf and pretended to forget where I put it. I asked Brittany the same question 3 times in 1 hour. What time is dinner again? Dear 6. Eleanor God. I just told you, she snapped. But I saw the satisfaction in her posture. She believed her own lie so thoroughly that she no longer saw me as a person, just a senile obstacle to be removed. Andre was busy securing the final nails in the coffin. He called to confirm that the customer service representative from Riverstone, the one who had spoken to the fake Eleanor, was flown in and staying at a hotel downtown. He also secured Ms. Davis, the young social worker. When she heard that her initial report had been altered to frame me, she was furious. I will be there, Ms. Davis had told Andre, I am not letting them use my name to hurt that woman. The night before the signing, the air in the house was thick enough to choke on. Brittany was vibrating with energy. She opened a bottle of expensive red wine purchased, no doubt, with my money, and poured 2 large glasses. To new beginnings, she toasted, clinking her glass against Mark's. Tomorrow is going to change everything for us. Babe, no more stress. No more financial tightropes. Mark did not look like a man celebrating a new beginning. He looked like a man walking to the gallows. He was slumped over the island. His tie loosened, staring into his glass of bourbon. He had been drinking more lately. The guilt was eating him. I could see it. But he was too weak, too deep in debt, and too controlled by her to stop the train. Yeah, new beginnings, Mark mumbled, downing the drink in one swallow. Lily sat in the living room, scrolling through her phone, feigning indifference. Brittany walked past her, pausing to offer a mock sympathetic pat on the shoulder. Don't worry, Lily. You can visit Mom whenever you want. We aren't monsters. I waited until the house was silent. Brittany and Mark had gone to sleep upstairs, the heavy thud of their door closing signalling the end of the day. I lay on my thin mat, my heart hammering against my ribs. Lily crept into the room and sat on the floor beside me. Mom, she whispered. Try to sleep. You need to be sharp for tomorrow. I reached out and gripped her hand. My palms were sweating. Lily, what if she has a backup plan? What if the judge believes Dr. Thorne? If this goes wrong, I could lose everything. My money, my freedom. I could end up locked away in some facility while she spends my life savings in Costa Rica. Lily squeezed my hand so hard it hurt. She leaned down, her eyes fierce in the moonlight. No, she whispered, her voice shaking with intensity. That is not going to happen. You saw Mark's face tonight. He is breaking. And Brittany. She is too arrogant to see the cliff she is walking off of. Tomorrow. Mum. Tomorrow. The only people losing everything will be them. I closed my eyes, visualizing the justice Andre had promised, praying that 24 hours from now, I would not be a prisoner in my own life. The morning of the signing, the sky was a flat, oppressive grey. We arrived at the law offices of Bryce and Sterling, a firm chosen by Brittany, located in the most expensive glass tower in downtown Maplewood. The conference room was blindingly bright, walls made of floor-to-ceiling windows that looked down on the city like a god's eye view. A long, polished mahogany table dominated the room. At the head sat Mr. Bryce, a man with a tan so deep it looked painted on, and a notary I recognized from Brittany's book club, a woman named Janice who refused to make eye contact with me. I was seated in the middle, trapped. Brittany pulled her chair right up next to mine, playing the role of the devoted daughter-in-law, her hand resting possessively on the back of my chair. Mark sat across from us. He looked terrible. His skin was pasty, his eyes rimmed with red, and he kept rubbing his temples as if trying to push a headache out of his skull. Lily sat near the door, slouching in her chair, scrolling through her phone with an air of bored indifference. But I knew better. I could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her ear was tilted slightly toward the table. Mr. Bryce cleared his throat and slid a thick stack of documents toward me. Mrs. Hartman, as we discussed. Based on Dr. Thorne's psychological evaluation, we are establishing a full guardianship. Mark will be the primary guardian, and Brittany will be the co-signer for all financial accounts to assist with daily expenses. He smiled, a shark showing its teeth. It is really the standard procedure for someone in your condition. I reached for the papers, my hand trembling partly an act, partly genuine terror. I would like to read them, just to be sure. Mr. Bryce's smile faltered. Brittany immediately leaned in, her perfume overpowering the room. Oh, Mom, she said, her voice dripping with condescension. You have never read the fine print in your life. Remember the cable bill you got so confused. Let Mr. Bryce explain it. You can trust Mark. Can't you? I looked at Mark. He was staring at the table, his jaw working. Yes, I trust Mark, I whispered. I picked up the heavy fountain pen. It felt like holding a grenade. Following the plan Andre had drilled into me, I signed the first page, the preamble. The scratch of the nib on the paper was loud in the silence. Beside me, I felt Brittany's entire body relax. She let out a breath she had been holding. She turned slightly away from me, pulling her phone from her purse under the table. I glanced over. Her thumbs moved in a blur. Done with 1/3. Get the champagne ready, babe. Across the room. Lily looked up from her phone. She had seen it too. Her eyes met mine for a fraction of a second, hard and glittering. Mr. Bryce flipped the page to the section authorizing the transfer of the Riverstone pension. Now, this is the authorization for the assets. Just sign here and here. I lowered the pen to the paper, but before the tip could touch the line, a hand slammed down on the mahogany table. "Stop," Mark said. His voice was hoarse, barely a whisper, but it stopped the room cold. Mark Brittany asked, her head snapping up. "What are you doing? We are almost done." Mark stood up slowly. His hands were shaking violently as he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a crumpled manila envelope. I knew what was inside. Lily and Andre had mailed it anonymously to his office 2 days ago. "I want to stop," Mark said, his voice gaining volume. "I need to know. Before I sign my mother's life away, I need to know who Gabe is." The colour drained from Brittany's face so fast, she looked like a ghost. Mark tossed the contents of the envelope onto the polished table. Photographs slid across the wood, grainy but clear enough. Brittany kissing a man outside a gym. Brittany and the same man looking at travel brochures. And printed emails, highlighting the plans to leave Mark with the debt. Mark. "Honey, someone is trying to frame me," Brittany stammered, standing up and reaching for him. "You can't believe this. Mr. Bryce looked uncomfortable. "Mr. Hartman, this is a private domestic matter. It really has no bearing on the competency hearing." "It has every bearing," Mark shouted, startling everyone. Tears were streaming down his face now. "If I am signing papers to give my mother's money to a woman who is planning to run away to Costa Rica with another man, then it matters. I am not going to be an accomplice to my own destruction." "Mark, please," Brittany hissed, her eyes darting to the notary. "Not here." Suddenly, the heavy glass door to the conference room swung open. The air in the room shifted instantly. Standing there was a woman in a sharp grey suit, flanked by 2 men who, despite their plain clothes, stood with the distinct posture of law enforcement. It was Sarah Vance, the assistant state prosecutor. Brittany froze. "Mr. Bryce stood up, buttoning his jacket. "Excuse me, we are in a private meeting. Ms. Vance stepped into the room, her heels clicking rhythmically on the floor. She didn't look at Bryce. She looked straight at Brittany. "Good morning," Ms. Vance said, her voice pleasant but edged with steel. "I am Assistant State Prosecutor Sarah Vance. These are investigators Miller and Kowalski. We are just here to observe the proceedings today. We have received some concerning reports regarding elder exploitation in this case." The silence that followed was deafening. Brittany sank back into her chair, her eyes wide and terrified. She leaned toward Mr. Bryce, whispering frantically, though in the quiet room. We could all hear her. Is this normal? Do prosecutors usually come to these? Mr. Bryce looked from the photos on the table to the prosecutor standing by the door. He wiped a bead of sweat from his forehead. Sometimes. He lied, his voice weak. "Just stay calm." I sat still, clutching my pen, watching the blood drain from my daughter-in-law's face, knowing that the trap had just snapped shut. Janice, the notary, pushed the final document toward me with a shaky hand, avoiding my eyes. It was the paper that would permanently sign away my freedom. "Mrs. Hartman," she murmured, "please sign on the line." "Before she signs," Ms. Vance said, stepping forward from the doorway, "I would like to review the terms to ensure Mrs. Hartman is truly protected." Brittany stood up so fast her chair scraped loudly against the floor. "This is a private family matter. We do not need the state interfering in our personal decisions." "No," Mark said. His voice was hoarse, but it cut through the room. He looked at his wife with a mixture of horror and exhaustion. Let them see it, Brittany. If this is really about helping Mum, then we have nothing to hide. Ms. Vance nodded at Mark, then opened her leather briefcase. She pulled out a stack of papers and laid them on the mahogany table. There was the email chain between Brittany and Riverstone. There was the transcript of the call where Brittany impersonated me. And there, highlighted in yellow, was the conversation with Gabe about fleeing the country. Ms. Lawson Hartman? Ms. Vance said, her voice calm and sharp. Do you deny that this is your email address? Do you deny discussing flight plans to Costa Rica, funded by Mrs. Hartman's pension? I was just joking, Brittany stammered, forcing a laugh that sounded more like a choke. It was just venting. You know how stressful caretaking is. I would never actually do it. One of the investigators stepped forward and placed a small speaker on the table. He pressed a button. Brittany's voice filled the bright conference room, loud and cruel. If everything goes smoothly, I can pull out at least $200,000, leave him with the debt and the old hag. The silence that followed was absolute. Brittany froze, her face draining of all colour. At that moment, Andre walked in. Beside him was Ms. Davis, the young social worker who had visited my house months ago. She looked nervous but determined as she placed a folder on the table. I was pressured to alter my report, Ms. Davis said, her voice trembling slightly but clear. But this is the original. Mrs. Hartman is sound of mind. She was being coerced. She was being starved. Ms. Vance turned her gaze to Janice, the notary. And you, Ms. Janice? You notarized a power of attorney document 3 months ago. Our records show Mrs. Hartman was at a dental appointment across town at that exact time. Notarizing a forged signature is a felony. Janice dropped her pen. She looked at Brittany, then at the floor, sweat beading on her upper lip. She told me Eleanor was sick. She said it was just a formality. That is enough, Ms. Vance said. She signaled to the investigators. Brittany Lawson Hartman, Ms. Vance announced, her voice ringing with authority. You are under arrest for first-degree financial exploitation of an elderly person, identity theft, and wire fraud. As the handcuffs clicked around Brittany's wrists, she started screaming, blaming Mark, blaming me, blaming everyone but herself. As they led her out, Mark sat slumped in his chair, his head buried in his hands. He looked up at me, tears streaming down his face. Mom, I didn't know it was this bad. I thought I was just protecting you from making foolish financial decisions. I stood up, feeling taller than I had in years. I looked my son in the eye. Mark, I said softly, the most foolish decision of my life was believing that you would always stand by me. Ms. Vance turned to me. Mrs. Hartman, regarding your son, he signed the papers. He is technically complicit. We can pursue full charges, which would likely mean prison time. Or, if you agree, we can offer a plea deal. He returns every cent of the money spent, serves 5 years of probation, and performs 2,000 hours of community service at a senior care facility. I looked at Mark. He was broken, weak, and foolish, but he was still the boy I had raised. I would not destroy him, but I would not save him from the consequences either. He takes the plea, I said. He can work off his debt to the elderly." 3 weeks later, the judge made it official. Brittany was denied bail due to being a flight risk. Mark began his community service the next day. But the most important ruling was the restoration of my rights. I did not go back to that house. Mark begged me to, saying he would fix up the guest room, but I refused. Instead, Lily and I found a small, sun-drenched apartment in a quiet complex. Using my first recovered pension check, we went to a furniture store. I bought a queen-sized bed with the thickest, softest mattress they had. That first night, I lay on my new bed. The sheets were crisp and clean. The room was warm. Lily was asleep in the room next door. I stared at the ceiling, and for the first time in a long time, I cried. I did not cry for the money or the betrayal. I cried because I was lying on something I owned. I was safe. I realized then that the $6,000 a month was never the point. The point was dignity. When an old woman finally stands up for herself, no one can ever make her sleep on the floor she built ever again. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I would love to hear where you all are tuning in from. So please drop your city or country in the comments below so we can connect. If you enjoyed this story and believe justice was served, please hit that like button. Subscribe to Grandma's Family Diary and smash the hype button to help this video reach more people.